Good evening. Welcome to this evening's meeting of the Water and Sewer Advisory Committee. Unfortunately, we are missing quorum this evening, so we will have our presentations, but we will not be having our regular meeting. We will not be approving the agenda. So onwards to the CIP discussion.
Okay.
With Kalia.
Thank you. All right, so we're going to give an overview of what we've done with the CIP. We have made a few changes. So tonight we're going to go discuss the CIP and the proposed changes. We're going to look deeper into our NCDOT projects, which we were rather vague on last time we met, and I will provide an update on the expenditures. All right, so again, our capital improvement plan, these are our major projects, our major investments that are over $50,000 in value. And they require more than 12 months to complete and have a useful life of 5 years. This plan allows us to financially plan as well as keeps us accountable. It allows us to evaluate our projects and put them on a timeline essentially so that we can prioritize and have the estimates in mind so we can better plan financially. When you sat down this afternoon, this evening, there is a packet with 7 projects. We're going to walk through those in a moment. An overview, though, for our NCDOT projects. In FY20, originally when we met, I believe 2 months ago at this point, we had provided NCDOT updates, and at that point we were about $3.8 million going into FY20 for expenditures, and throughout the CIP it was about $8 million. Since then, we have made some revisions. We have found more information on the matching. And so proposed this evening and changes that we'll see in the CIP before it is adopted. We're now at 1.3 for FY20 in terms of expenditures, and we're looking at 4.3 for the total FY20, FY29. All right, so jumping into those, so we will go in order if you would like to follow along in the packet. The first one is NC 53 at Jacksonville Parkway and Gateway Drive. So again, these NCDOT projects affect water and sewer, and so that's what we want to focus on. Prior, it was about $190,000 for this project from water and sewer, and it has since then dropped to $20,000 for construction. The next project is the Branch Widening on page 2. So this project originally was approximately $385,000. It has dropped significantly down to $296,500. So that is what the city will have to put into this project. On to page 3 for the US 17. This is Marine Boulevard. At Bell Fork and Gum Branch. This project originally was about $242,000. Since the revisions and since some of the other changes, it is down to about $190,000. So everything has dropped significantly, especially the next on page 4 for Super Street, Pony Farm to Regale. Originally, we saw about $2.9 million for this project. This one has come down to about $330,000.
It was originally how much?
About 2.9.
That's a big decrease.
Yes. So we have made some revisions to the scope as the projects come closer. So we did have the right of way on this one.
And what basically these numbers are being provided to us from NCDOT. And as they get further into the design and they gather information on our utilities and where they're located, and they determine where their project is going to impact our project, there can be significant changes. And preliminarily, when they are looking at projects, especially like this project along 258, it's a long stretch of 258, I think all the way up to almost 53, just short of 53. Most likely when they started with the $2.9 million, they were probably looking at moving all of the water line that we have in 258 out of the roadway. And since then, upon evaluation, they've probably decided that because of the age of the pipe, the material of the pipe, we are probably in the location, we're probably able to leave most of that in place. And what they're most likely allowing for with such a low number is where we have conflicts. So if they have to install a storm drain or something, a new pipe or something, they may have to take our water line and leave it in the same alignment, but move it vertically. So go underneath of something. You know, if you have a storm drain, they may go underneath of that storm drain. So all they can be dealing with that kind of money is conflicts. There's not enough money there to do any major realignment or anything like that. But we do have a 16-inch main that runs right down 258 all the way from our wells near 111 all the way into town. So we have infrastructure along that roadway, but it's ductile iron. It's not all that old. So we are able to leave it in place. And that's probably the significant change.
Okay.
But that's still good news.
Yes, it is. That's a bunch of money.
And DOT did have a policy for, I don't know, the last several years where if it was in their roadway, they wanted it out of their roadway, regardless of what shape it was in. And starting with kind of Hargett Street, I think it was, they began working with us more and allowing us to leave things in their roadway as long as we made, you know, the sufficient repairs and, you know, especially along areas that you really couldn't get it out of the roadway or, you know, easements weren't available to move to. So
in future, if something has to be done, would it be done in the roadway or would you abandon and go next to?
most likely if it's just something that we have to make a repair on, we would just go in and make a point repair and only deal with that one little section and just repair it right in the road.
And this isn't gonna impact the future pipe coming, the other pipe to the land treatment system in the future?
That's actually an excellent question. It does impact, this project does impact that alignment slightly. I think we've had to gain one additional easement and adjust the alignment, and it's on the bottom side, I think, kind of in this area, right, Andrew? I can't draw on it. It's not.
I thought
Let
it was
me
way
draw.
up here, 111.
About where the stoplight,
Well, if that is south, yeah, where the stoplight is.
right about where the stoplight is shown. We had to, coming under 258, we had to adjust because they're trying to better align that roadway.
So, okay.
But that pipe's not in place yet.
No, so is that one coming over through this way or is it coming over closer towards 111 when it comes through? Which way is it coming? Because
It will actually come down. Let's see if I can get this. Let's see if I can do it this way. It will come down here and go under and cross.
Okay. And that'll occur after all of this is in or sometime during all of this?
We're not sure yet. It depends on the timing, but we'll coordinate with them directly.
Okay.
And they have our plans and they're updating us.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, on to, I believe, page 5 with the Commerce Drive. So Commerce Drive will extend to Piney Green, and originally this was just over $450,000, and we see it drop down to close to $370,000.
And that's water line extension? Is that what that is?
That one is coming correctly. Oh, no water line.
I think that one, we're actually extending the water line out to mains we have closer to North Marine Town Center. So that's simply a water line extension.
Because it's a new road going through.
Yes,
Okay.
that is correct.
Western Boulevard access median. This one, still a high number, but we were just about 3.4 million, so we did come down to just about 2.5 million. And this is the length of Western from Marine to Lejeune.
And this one, we will likely have to relocate quite a bit of our water line. And part of the reason for that is not only location and the number of conflicts, but pipe material. The pipe material that's in Western is, it's good as long as you don't mess with it, but once you start messing with it or dry it out, it becomes brittle.
Some of it's been there for a while too.
Yes. So it's an older material, and again, as long as it's under pressure and it's wet, it's a good material. But once you start messing with it or dry it out, it does become brittle, and that's where you begin to have problems with it.
It says construction in 2022. Is it going to take just the 1 year or a couple of months?
No,
or
I'm sure that its
couple years?
construction began in 2022, and
in stages?
yeah, I'm sure that one will be definitely coordinated, constructed in stages. And I would expect the utility work to be done in advance of the roadway work.
Okay.
Is this from 17 to 24?
Yes,
The whole way?
yes, sir.
That's a whole long line.
Yes, about 10,000 feet if I remember right.
Is that correct?
Couple months.
Yes.
Lastly, we have the interchange. This one was originally just over 860,000, and now we're down to 650,000. About 200,000 there. How all of this affects our expenditures. So when we're looking strictly at water, we see in the bold are going to be the NCDOT projects that we just briefly discussed that have changed. And the other projects we have spoken about, we have briefed on in the past. And so these are the 5 water projects where we see expenditures in FY20. So we have the 2 DOT, we have the chemical tank base repair, water plant maintenance bridge, and the Black Creek replacement.
And before we move off of that, one thing we should point out is these are estimates based on design cost. Once they actually, as they call it, let the project, or we're more familiar with the term bid out the project, there can be, it basically moves to actual cost at that point. And as we saw with the Gum Branch and Western intersection, bids actually came in higher than what was estimated for the whole project, including the water and sewer conflicts. So it is possible that, and I think that one was largely based on the bidding climate at the time. They only had one bidder for that project, I believe. So it came in high. So some of this is subject to change. And as we get more information, they could fluctuate slightly.
Did Hurricane Florence impact any of these in any way?
We weren't planning to do, the only reason we are doing the NCDOT projects is because of NCDOT projects. We would not have done any of these projects otherwise. So these are not, from what I understand, impacted by Florence. These are projects they had planned.
Okay.
And they have a lot more coming too for this area.
Okay.
Which is good news, but it has impacts to our utilities as we see.
Yes. Especially when people leave for a month or so.
Yes.
Our
Okay.
sewer expenditures, we have 6 projects here. We have Parkwood Regional, Decatur Lift Station, Holiday City, Bryn Mawr Force Main relocation, Alice Pump Station upgrades, and our I&I is one of our ongoing programs. We are in the 2nd year, so this FY19 we found areas, and FY20 when we look into the expenditures here, we will go out and fix those areas. So many of these again we have discussed, and that they are rolling over from FY19.
So how is the Holiday City mobile home park situation going as far as what's being decided?
They did quite a bit of internal work through a private contractor. The Holiday City paid for, the owner of Holiday City paid for that work. And they had a consulting engineer come in and do a pre-work analysis and a post-work. And we haven't received the post-work yet. But preliminarily, they have said they have eliminated quite a bit of I&I, or inflow and infiltration, in that system. So I know that we have flow meters that are either deployed now or will be deployed, and we can bring that information back to you when we have definitive answers. But I know that they spent quite a bit of money making repairs in the park itself.
Thank you.
And so our combined water and sewer, this is where 5 of the 7 DOT projects come in. And again, bolded because of some of the changes with the expenditures. And then the other 2 projects, we have the vehicle wash facility and we have the fiber optic cable network. And just a portion of both those, or the vehicle wash facility, just a portion of that is water sewer. And there are other funding sources that are going to assist.
And same with the fiber optic. We are participating to bring fiber optic connections to a lot of our water tanks that we currently have wireless connections to, and we struggle with the wireless connections, especially during a storm like Florence. I think the water plant was behind for more than a week at our water tanks. So the fiber optic would give us a lot better, or a lot more robust system.
So as an overview of all of this, water and sewer, so our total for FY20 about 14.4 million, and total for the FY20 through FY29 is just over 53 million. Moving forward, we'll make adjustments as necessary, additional meetings as needed. This will be adopted with the budget by June 30th, and for the recommendation.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we were going to ask you for a recommendation of support tonight, but unfortunately, we're not able to do that. And being that our next meeting is in June, we'll probably be either at or maybe even after budget adoption. I'm not sure that, unfortunately, you'll have the opportunity. That said, if there are any changes or anything is different from what you've seen, obviously we will bring that back to you.
Okay. We do have the June meeting for June 30th, but it's getting kind of late.
That's right. And council historically, and I know finance likes to be before the June 30th deadline. So it's likely, we have been working very hard on budget at the city council workshop, so it's likely that we will be there. So we'll see. We'll be well ahead of that date, right? Right, Gail? And we're going to, in the next presentation, we're actually going to show you what impact this has on our rates. So we do have a discussion on that. So we were going to offer that if you wanted to hold your recommendation to hear that, that would certainly be acceptable. But either way, you still can't. You know, unfortunately, we don't have a quorum for support.
But the viewing public still has the opportunity to see it and potentially contact you with any comments or questions or concerns they may have.
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
So with that, we'll move right into the rate model update, which is why Ms. Mades is here tonight. She's got to make sure I don't say anything wrong, which is very likely.
So I'm sitting way over here, you know, I sit next to him.
That's right. So we have a 10-year model. It follows the state requirement for, as you recall, we have a state requirement for 10-year capital improvement plan related to water and sewer because of the system development fee legislation. So it makes sense that our model follows that same 10-year planning window. So on that, there are assumptions that have to go into the model, and then we use these assumptions to generate what we think or foresee for any rate increases, what impact that would have to the average utility bill. And then we also have built in there what would happen to, a utility bill closer to 6,000 gallons, which is an industry standard we've kind of used in the historically looking at rates.
So that's 6,000 for a family of 4?
Well, it's 6,000 for a residential home. But we do have those people that stay within the 2,000 base rate, and we show that as well, so you can compare. So with that, we are, for FY19, we looked at, we're projecting to be somewhere around $16 million worth of expenditures. So that goes into the model. And then for our FY20 budget, we are looking at somewhere around $14.8 million worth of expenditures. And the difference you see there is primarily capital projects, I believe. So along with that, we have escalation that is built into the model. And we do follow some industry standards for different areas within the model, but we are able to customize that to what we have seen historically or to better fit, our market. And as an example, we've got an expense escalation of 1.5% to roughly 4% per year, but that is, again, based on different category and specific things or specific indices. So, as an example, we wouldn't use 5% on salaries because that's not historically what we've seen. So we use probably on the lower end closer to the 1.5% or somewhere around that for salary increases. So we are using information that we have available and using historic information to build some of those escalation factors. And then we have a volume of growth projected, and that is projected at 1%, minus 1% per year. And part of the reason for that is because nationally, there is a downward trend in water consumption. And unfortunately, I don't remember the exact numbers that I had looked up for city council, but it basically said that somewhere in the 90s, a household per person was using just over 100 gallons. So if you had 4 people in a household, then the average usage nationally was just over 400 gallons per day. In 2000, and I think it was 15, it was down to 83. I do remember that number. So it was down, roughly, I think it was just over 20 gallons per person. And largely that becomes because of the energy efficient or the HE washers and dishwashers that we have now. They use much less water than the older versions. Of course, they run a lot longer, but they use much less water. And that is probably one of the biggest changes we've seen. Now, obviously, we're not going to be at minus 1% per year forever because we can't regress forever. At some point, that'll plateau. But based on what we've seen historically, we're still watching a slight decline per household. So we're using minus 1%. And then we have included the proposed CIP as you have seen it tonight with the revised NCDOT provided information. And that all goes into our model. So just to give you some history, this is water. You can see the year, the number of meters. Some discussion came up about, well, why is 2019 estimated at less than 2018? And we determined that the reason for that was largely because of the storm. We have homes that were damaged where they've turned water off. So we are hoping to see that trend will start to reverse. But that was the primary reason we saw the decline from 2018 to 2019. And then you can see the volume, like we said, There's still some slight decrease, but if you go back to 2015 and you look at now, there's really not a large growth. And on top of that, is that volume build?
I think
There's your softball question.
Not too softball, but I believe that's all of the gallons.
All of the gallons. So that would include flushing and like water that Joe uses where we blow, lines off for water quality, those kind of things.
And
So
this is water use citywide, so it's not just residential, it's for the
Correct.
businesses, the
Everything.
laundromats, the movie theaters, everything's
right.
water.
that's correct. And then you can see the revenue at 8.5 million. For sewer, you'll notice that the meters are slightly different. That's because we do have some areas outside of town where we have water customers but don't have sewer customers. Rock Creek is an example of that. There are a few places where we have some sewer customers but not water customers, but they don't offset. We have more water customers out of city limits than we do sewer customers. But you can see again, our meters are slightly down there as well.
Question for you.
Sure.
On 2019, there's fewer meters and fewer gallons, but the revenue is higher?
I don't know if I could answer that, but I know that we did a slight increase of 2.25% last year.
Okay.
Which we're going to talk about in just a minute. So here's what the panel looks like. If you'll notice on the blue line at the top where it says combined rate plan, right here, that shows a constant 2.25% increase each year. And that's following discussion that City Council had last year. And basically what they said is they will look at 2.25% increase annually, but they will look at it every year. So it's still considered every year. The green line you see where it says last plan is basically based on the model, the increases that would need to be activated in order to balance the model. So you'll see in 2020, it wouldn't require an increase in the green plan. But look what happens in 2021. You can see almost a 5% increase there. And then the next year it drops back down to 0.5%, so almost nothing. And then the next year a little bit less, and the next year it goes up. But if you get out in 2026, you'll see a large increase. So following down to where you see the senior DSC, the DSC stands for debt service coverage. So I'm going to ask you to jump to the all. So you'll see all debt service coverage. So right here, basically that is how our rate is covering the debt that we have issued. And we do have some requirements, but you'll see that in 2021, it's yellow under the blue scenario, which means caution, we're getting near what we've set, which is 1.2. So 1.2% has to cover our debt ratio. So our revenue has to be 1.2% larger than our debt. And then we get down to, I'm going to ask you to go down to the scenario management. So here's the 6,000 gallon average water bill. You can see what it is now currently. And then the minimum bill. So the minimum is $51.20. So you can see over time what happens. So if you look back at the blue line, this is following what council put in place last year at 2.25%. You can see that we would continue those out. And our debt service coverage is close in 2021, but then in 2022, it comes right back up to 1.28. So we're fairly comfortable there. You can see what happens to the water bills. I'm just going to jump down to the minimum bill. You can see it increases from $51.20 to $52.35, so $1 and my mathematician over here,
15
$1.15. But that's for both water and sewer. So as you get further out, you can see that there are some pretty large differences. But, you know, I guess the thing to notice that if you're just looking a couple of years out, the 2.25% this year and 2.25% next year is really close to what we would need anyway. If you went with just in time, we just have to do 5% all at once.
Which people tend to be unhappy about.
That's right, especially when we get out to 2026.
Yeah.
However, the next slide I'm going to show you is kind of shows you what happens with. You'll notice that this that we've said the 2.25% and just kind of overrode this. The problem is obviously that all of these 2.25% don't make up to that 22%. So as you get further out, we do have things that we will have to deal with. But as we've talked, as staff has talked, as we're looking at, you know, it's great to be able to predict 10 years in the future. But there are market conditions that are going to change. There are bidding climates that are going to change. There may be changes in regulations. I mean, we really can't predict 10 years out. It's important to plan for 10 years out, but where we're really focused is in the next few years because we have a lot of sound data for the next 2 to 5 years. So this shows you what happens with our fund balance as we go further out. Again, the blue line is the 2.25% each year. The green line is, you know, we have to do a rate increase as it's required. And if you remember that 2026, look what happens to, I forgot I can't draw on there, I'm sorry. Look what happens to our fund balance. The black line is our target. That's what we need to keep in reserve, which you can see that roughly it's around 8%, I believe. Is that right?
I think it's 8 months of expenditures.
So 8 months of expenditures. So you can see that under the green scenario, we don't have a fund balance challenge because we would implement increases as we needed it. But you'll notice that if we continue with the 2.25, the further out we get, it's showing that that increase can't keep up with the demand. Now, again, you know, if you look at the first few years, we're pretty comfortable with those numbers out to, you know, out 5 years. Our bigger concern, and again, we're evaluating this annually. So as we get closer, we will be able to see, you know, do we need to do something in 23 or 24 to avoid something big in 26 or 27?
So was it a hard and fast rule that it was either or? Because I thought it was sort of a 2 point whatever percent, but it didn't have to be
It is
2.5%.
correct. It is not a hard and fast rule. Council looks at it every year.
Okay.
So, and basically from while they haven't adopted the budget for building into the budget and building the budget to look at it, they have stuck with the 2.25% because, you know, looking at, we could be facing 5% next year. So
Right.
do a little bit at a time.
So instead of
And then we
doing
can
zero-
reevaluate.
So instead of doing 0 now and 5% next year, if that's what between the blue and the greens are showing,
Yes.
just go ahead and do the 2.5,
Yes,
or 2.25 and whatever.
that's correct.
Okay.
So that's all I have regarding the panel. Did I leave anything out that we discussed at council or that we've discussed internally?
I don't think so.
I have a question.
Sure.
So the 2.2 we were doing on the base, is that, because I remember in the past when we raised rates, it was on the water rate, the sewer rate, we were adjusting those two rates, but we're keeping those the same for the overages or,
No, I think we're going up on all of it. The
Yes.
base rate goes up 2.25 and the volume rate goes up 2.25.
Yes.
so it's two, so on the base and the over.
And we have, you're right,
Yeah.
historically, we've done different things.
Right,
At one point, we did only the base rate, and then another point, we only did the volumetric.
right, that's what.
And I think the largest one was when we only did the
Right,
volumetric.
now it's about 25%.
That's correct,
10 years ago.
yes,
You got a lot of flack for that one too.
yes. Well, and, a tool like this prior to that
You can do some
would have been
adjusting.
significantly helpful.
Because then you could look to see, okay, instead of having some of those weird smaller numbers, stay with a bigger number, and what do you need to actually adjust to not have a 22% somewhere out around 26?
Well,
But
and
you'll know as you get closer to it.
one thing I did forget, as we're talking about this and looking at the rates, we actually look at what our capital projects do to the rates.
Mhm.
So we've looked at, do we need to move this project from here to here? And what does that do to our rate? Or if we pull one in that we need, what can we do to shift out such that we don't, so that we're offsetting, we're not causing a problem with our rate just because we moved one major project or, several smaller projects.
They don't all hit at the same time.
Correct. So we are using those to help balance out.
And I want to welcome Jill to the
Thank you.
committee.
Yeah.
And as our new person, in case you have any questions for Wally this evening.
Thank you.
Other questions? Thoughts, comments?
I like the fact that you're able to see in advance, to be able to consider back and forth between things that might change, because it makes I know you don't have a crystal ball, but it does help make some of your forecasting a little bit easier, because all of us like to try to figure out what our budgets are doing,
Yes.
and having somebody outside our budgets go and change something on us makes us all have to then readjust everything else. So that's helpful.
Thank you.
I know we can't go into old business, new business, or any of that other fun stuff.
Well, we can
Is there
discuss if
anything
you-
else that you would like to bring up?
I do have a couple of things in new business.
Okay.
And they don't require action. I just want to, I'd like to introduce Anthony Futrell. Anthony is our utilities maintenance superintendent. He has taken Pete's place.
Ah,
So, Anthony, if you have any issues, you can call Anthony. He'll be happy to address.
Appreciate it. Did you just put his phone number up on the slide?
Well, I can get you want his direct number?
So I wrote him down, Anthony Futrell, the new Pete.
Yes, that's correct. So Anthony was actually an employee with the city at our water plant for what, 5 years?
4 years.
4 years. And then
Felt
left,
longer.
and then left us to go to take a job with a private utility company where he ran treatment, water sewer, treatment, as well as the collection and distribution systems, pump stations, all associated. And he managed multiple systems for the company that he worked for. So we're very excited to have him. And just one slight thing, Gavin also accepted a new position. He went to
South Granville Water and Sewer Authority.
South Granville Water and Sewer, and he became their, basically their Pete. So he got a promotion too. So, and we have had internal promotions from that. So in the future, you'll be seeing some of those.
Okay, thank you. Welcome.
Thank you.
And since we did introduce Jill to our advisory
Yes.
committee, we do still have 2 vacancies.
We do.
So people out there in television land that might want to apply, they come down to City Hall to pick up a form or off the website. Either may occur.
Yes,
and then
That
turn
is
it on
correct.
in and become a member of our Mary group?
that's correct. And
Wonderful.
we'd be remiss not to mention that Jill has like 35 years or more of
Of experience.
water and sewer
Plus or minus,
experience,
yes.
so.
Formerly as
She-
a chemist.
Yes, she's kind of a resident expert.
So are you gonna ask them how the blue frogs are doing?
Are you volunteering?
Not sure that I can completely answer that question. I mean, we're still seeing positive results in water quality. I can't say whether, we have not noticed an increase in sludge. So I can't, while I can't say they are reducing sludge, I also can't say that they're not either, because we really haven't seen an increase or decrease in sludge. It seems to be moving around. What I will say is the ones that we installed last, they were in for the better part of a season, and then we got hit with Hurricane Florence,
How did
which
that disrupt everything?
it definitely disrupted things. I mean, across the board. But I think this year will be a good tale of what we're going to see. I know that we haven't seen the same benefits that we're hoping for out of the gold frogs, which, what we were looking there were hopefully further clarification and reducing some nozzle clogging. But hopefully, I don't know that I would expect to see that when we have full lagoon levels, but if we get down to lower lagoon levels, that's where I would expect to see some benefit. So that remains to be seen, and I really hope for lower lagoon levels.
Knock on wood, if you can find some?
Yes. Well, we're enjoying the dry weather. Let's
Yes.
keep it that way.
Yes. So, James, did you have any information from any other board?
I have.
No?
No.
Okay.
Well, before, I will say that in April, we had the committee appreciation dinner, the volunteer appreciation dinner. And Mr. Dorn was recognized
He
at
was
that
for
dinner,
35
so.
years.
Yes.
Very nice.
Her and
So,
Jill.
In his defense, he came to that instead of being able to go to the Onslow Water and Sewer Authority meeting that night. So that's why he doesn't have an update.
Next one will be July.
Oh, okay.
Every 3 months they have one.
Well, we appreciate your 35 years of service on volunteer boards.
Thank you.
It's a lot of volunteering. It's a lot of cookies.
It is.
I hear you.
So anybody have anything else this evening?
I think so.
Well, since we're not an official meeting, I won't even do the little gavel doohickey. Wish everybody a good evening and safe travels home.
Thank you.
Thank you.